Hey guys, welcome back. This is Bernard from the BTNHD, and do not freak out, there is sound within this video. So you just saw a very quick unboxing of the Moto One Action smartphone device. I am not a huge smartphone reviewer, so I was super surprised to get this guy in the lab to test it out for you guys. For me to review a smartphone, I definitely had to use my son, because what is the best way to test out a phone is to give it to a child that loves to use smartphones to do YouTube and play games and take pictures and do all kinds of crazy stuff with it. So during the video, you're going to see my son, because my son used this phone more than me, but the performance wise is pretty good. So what comes inside the box? We have our startup guide, we have a safety guide, as well as a SIM pin, which allows you to eject the slots so you can insert your SIM as well as your micro SD card, which supports up to 1 terabyte. It also has a USB to Type-C cable, and also your 10-watt charger adapter. Like I said before, this phone was used a lot with my son. He fell in love with it. He thought it was his to keep. He was playing all kinds of games. The performance is pretty well. The weight on this particular Moto One Action smartphone is around 0.40 pounds. The thickness of it is around 0.34 inches. Price tag for this particular phone is around $349. This phone is advertised in 2 colors. I actually got the pearl white. You're also able to get the blue edition. I really like the blue edition rather than the white edition. Also, Lenovo hooked me up with a plastic clear cover. This cover does not come within the box, so it's an additional accessory that you have to purchase, but it's really nice that they gave me it just to make sure it doesn't get scratched up. One of the cool things about the Moto One Action is that it comes unlocked, so that allows you to use T-Mobile, Verizon, or AT&T, or any carrier that you have. Just insert your SIM card and bam, it starts working with no problem. If you have the smartphone facing you to the point that you are able to see the display, on your right hand side we have our power button as well as our volume buttons. On your left hand side you don't have any buttons. The only thing that you have is your SIM card slot, which allows you to hook up your SIM card or your micro SD. At the very bottom of the phone, you have your Type-C connection, which allows you to hook up your power adapter to charge it, as well as a Type-C or USB cable to hook it up to your computer to transfer or get files from the SD card. Right next to the Type-C port, you have your speaker. At the very top of the display, you will see a 3.5 millimeter jack, which allows you to hook up a headphone. It's pretty cool to have a phone with this feature up here, but the majority of us are normally have like Bluetooth device to listen to music. Now to power on the device, again, like I said, on the right hand side, there is the power button. There's many ways to log into this phone, which is pretty cool. One way is the fingerprint scanner, which is located right here in the back. You are able to unlock the phone using the front camera with your face. You have the traditional ways to log into the phone with a PIN or a password or like a pattern, which is well known within the Android world. All right, so we just went over some of the ports on the Moto One Action smartphone. How about the display? So the display size is around 6.35 inches IPS with a resolution of 1980 by 2520 with a PPI or pixel per inch of 430. Which is really good when you're viewing video or playing games, which my son loved it. For real, seriously. He thought it was his when I gave it to him to play around with. So for the brightness level, I think this is around 93 or 96% right now. And this is the lowest that this phone could go. And let's bring it all the way to 100%. And this is the brightest. Let me bring it down a little bit because that's too bright for me. Now for the speakers for the Moto One Action, it caught me off guard. And the reason why is because they are extremely loud. The speakers are located at the very bottom of the phone right next to this Type-C, which allows you to hook up your cable to power it, or to hook it up to the computer. If you want to know the decibels on the loudness of these particular speakers, I got around 105.3 decibels, and that is extremely high. Now for camera, you have a couple of cameras. You have one in the front, which is pretty cool, but the main focus is the one at the back. This guy is actually 12 megapixels, has a ultra wide f FOV, which FOV stands for field of view of 117 degrees, which is awesome. You are able to capture footage and landscape or portrait and just capture everything with no problem. Now let's take a quick sidebar and go inside the computer and look at some of the photos that I took on this particular phone and check out some of the specs there. All right, so we're on the desktop right now. I have a folder called Moto One Action with two subfolders. I got a folder called Photo Features and another one with Photo Onlys with personal stuff. One of the cool things I like about the One Action smartphone is that you are able to change the settings to RAW, which actually allows you to get the DMG files, and you're able to do a little bit more within Lightroom. Now, within Lightroom, I'm going to open this guy up. I have two subfolders or two collections, and one collection is standard stuff of me changing settings and just taking pictures. This picture right here with an ISO of 124, standard zoom, looks really clear. I didn't see any distortions or, any blurriness. When I kind of zoom into 3.5, I see a little bit of blurriness around the areas right here. It's kind of really soft, right? When I zoom in all the way to 8x with an ISO of 56, you really see that like around the white areas is like really blurry. It's not really clear. Now, with the ISO, I started messing around in the dark, ISO 100, with a little bit of light in the room. This is what you get. This is not that bad. When I bump up the ISO to 200, still in the dark room, doesn't look that bad. When I bump it up again to 400, I see a little bit of, like, it's really soft around the areas, a little blurry around this little corner right here. I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see. Now, if I go up to 800, like, it really gets really blurry, really soft around the areas. When I bump it up to 16, it looks really horrible. You see on the pictures like a little green. And when I bump it up to 32, with 32 you see like a lot of green in the corners. It's like really horrible. I turn the lights on inside the room with an ISO 100. It does not look bad. It looks pretty clear. Zoom in this little corner right here. You get a little softness around the edges, but not as much. When you bump up the ISO to 200, it doesn't look that bad, but like the corner of the monitor, it looks kind of faded out, kind of blurry. Bump it up to 400 ISO. You don't see, it's not that bad. I did notice that one of my monitors need to be switched out ASAP. It's kind of crappy. When I bumped up the ISO again to 800, you will see like a little bit of color issues around the corners. You get these white lines around here, like black lines actually, white and black lines. Bump it up to 16, you will definitely see that black line around the images. And for 32, like you're gonna see like greenish. And like my monitor right here, I definitely need to change this monitor like ASAP. Look at how bad that monitor is. All right, so let's talk about the performance on the Moto One Action smartphone device. So let's talk about specs, right? Because I'm all about the specifications, because that's the way I do it within my laptop reviews. So for a CPU, this guy actually has two CPUs. One is a ARM Cortex A53 with a clock speed of 2.21 gigahertz. And the second processor is an ARM Cortex A73 with a clock speed of 1.64 gigahertz. For the operating system, it has an Android 9 Pie. Memory only comes with 4 gigs, which I'm a little disappointed with the memory. It'd have been cool if it had a little bit more memory. Let's say around 8 gigs. That'd have been awesome. For the GPU, it comes with a Mali G72. For storage, I was super surprised with the storage. This guy actually comes with 128 gigs of storage, internal. Now, you can actually bump it up with a micro SD card, and the micro SD card actually goes up to 1 terabyte. Overall performance on this particular machine, I was super satisfied with it. I did do a Geekbench kind of stress test on it. It worked pretty well. When my son was playing Call of Duty, it was really seamless. I didn't see any hesitations. It was pretty smooth. And again, when you give a phone to a child and it's sluggish, they would definitely let you know. And my son fell in love with this guy automatically, like, for real, guys. He thought it was his to keep. Okay, so let's talk about the battery, because with smartphone devices, the battery is the #1 thing. So the battery life is not that bad. Standby, which is what I had this machine for the past couple of days, it lasts around 4 or 5 days, but it's 19% right now if you look at the top. But standby, if you're not using it a lot, you're getting a couple of messages like I got right here, a couple of messages. It's around 5 days. Now, if you're using it really heavy, I would say 2 or 3 days. When my son had it, it lasts maybe 2 days straight. And he was like, Dad, where's the power supply? Where's the power supply? You know, I need it to play Call of Duty. I was like, no, just play with it, play with it. And with 10% on red, he was still able to play with it with no problem. All right, so let's conclude our review on the Moto One Action smartphone. Now, this phone right here is a nice addition to carry around. I mean, it's a phone, it makes calls, you're able to text, you're able to go to Twitter, Instagram, blah, blah, blah. You know, that's all the standard stuff that you would get with a smartphone. The price is pretty awesome, around $349. It is unlocked, which allows you to hook up your carrier, T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, whatever you have, Sprint. You can hook it up with this guy with no problem because it is unlocked. One of the things that I really, really like about this phone is the 4K recording. That is a huge, huge plus. I like the way that it captures the 4K with no problem. The camera being 12 megapixels. It's pretty fast, but when I was taking pictures, I did notice a little sluggish when taking fast pictures with my son when he was playing around. But, you know, it's not that bad. It does have many features that I do enjoy. One of the cool things about this phone, it does have Google Lens. I like that feature a lot. You're able to take a picture of a particular item, and then it kind of like searches the database. That's kind of freaky and tell you what it is, and allows you to go inside Google and provide you more information, right? Another thing that I liked about this phone is that my son, when he was taking pictures and I was recording him, he was watching YouTube and taking pictures at the same time. I've never seen that before. Again, I'm not a huge smartphone reviewer, so you're probably saying, what are you talking about, Bernardo? And you're adding a mean comment. Like, for real, I still own an iPhone, and I know when I want to take a picture or I'm viewing a video, it kind of shuts down the video, and then the camera automatically loads up. On this phone, my son was able to still watch YouTube and take pictures with no problem. I think that's pretty awesome. Overall, I really had fun reviewing the Moto One Action smartphone device. I'm not a huge reviewer dealing with smartphone devices, so the best way for me to review it is to actually give it to my son because, you know, he's always using a phone. And why not, right? Hopefully you guys enjoy. Leave comments right below. Don't forget about hitting that like button. Also subscribe, share out the video, and I catch you guys on the next one. Peace out.